Hello everyone, this is IceGuard, and in the first episode of Baldur's Gate Weekly, we will be covering the recent controversy or drama, for a lack of a better word, surrounding Baldur's Gate 3. Additionally, to celebrate the launch of this channel as well as the full release of the game, I will be giving away a free copy of Baldur's Gate 3. Stay tuned for more information on this coming towards the end of the video. So let's jump straight into this with some of the more juicy news. We all love a bit of drama, don't we? Drama. So whilst I was browsing through Twitter, I came across a post from a Mr. Xavier Nelson Jr. Now, before I start, the only reason I'm mentioning his name here is because he seems to be a recognizable figure within the gaming industry. Before I go any further, I would ask that none of you guys direct any hate towards him or other developers or other people that agree with him. We have freedom of speech, everyone is entitled to their opinions, everyone is entitled to voice their opinions, and that's fine. So no hate speech will be tolerated on this channel. So with that out the way, there are a series of 10 Twitter posts by this guy Xavier. I won't go through the entire set of posts in detail, but I will offer a summary. He mentions that the game, Baldur's Gate 3, had a lengthy development cycle starting in 2017, with Larian having previous well-established titles under their belt, and that set a good foundation for Baldur's Gate 3. They also had 3 years of successful early access period. He then goes on to say that Larian employs 400 people over 7 offices, and therefore I think he's trying to say that Larian are a big studio. I would agree with that. And that Baldur's Gate 3 should not be considered industry standard, but rather an anomaly. He finishes off his series of posts by saying that if the gaming community started to expect that every RPG game from now on be as big or as deep or as all-inclusive as Baldur's Gate 3, then the remaining devs may never be able to give us the thing we love the most. And that's how he concludes his post. Very dramatic. So, first of all, when deciding to go public and start making such comments, you immediately open up yourself to feedback from everyone else, right? That's the power of free speech. It works both ways. That is also why when making such open-ended comments, one needs to do very thorough research to be able to substantiate what they're saying at any given time. Otherwise, you invite yourself to receive criticism, and that's fair. You're entitled to voice your opinion. People then are entitled to voice their opinions on what you've said. So, before starting on my commentary on his series of posts, I must say that I'm in no way affiliated with Larian, nor am I a developer. I am a simple 35-year-old gamer, and that therefore gives me the right to comment on his post, because I am a consumer, right? I'm a customer, and consequently I'm part of the target base of his comments. Now, with all due respect to the gentleman, I strongly believe that his logic is flawed, and in a way, I also believe that it is being done in a subtle but very deliberate way. He's trying to skew the public opinion towards agreeing that the gaming industry, as it stands today, is okay and is acceptable. Again, these are my personal views. That's how I interpret what he's actually posting on Twitter. So let's start off by commenting on the statement that he claims that Larian has an immense amount of wind blowing behind their backs. We know for a fact, because Sven and other Larian employees have mentioned as much, that Larian did an insane amount of research into Baldur's Gate, into the previous Baldur's Gate games, as well as the Forgotten Realms lore as a whole. They then presented a business case to Wizards of the Coast for why they should be the studio to actually bring Baldur's Gate 3 to life. Eventually, after a further request for more work from Wizards of the Coast, they then agreed and gave them the green light to proceed with the development of the game. So that's history now. What I'm trying to get at here is that Baldur's Gate 3's success isn't some kind of miracle fluke. Zalaver at some point gives a weird metaphor that game development is like dangling elephants over cliffs. Like, no. The success of Baldur's Gate 3 is years in the making and is by no means a fluke. Much like World of Warcraft is to MMOs, Baldur's Gate as a franchise is the North Star of CRPGs. That's the way I see it. Wizards of the Coast and every developer out there probably know this. That is why Wizards of the Coast declined numerous Baldur's Gate 3 game pitches from other studios in the past. They wanted something groundbreaking, something innovative, to continue the legacy of BioWare's Baldur's Gate games, and that's completely understandable. A vast universe such as the Forgotten Realms needs a medium in which its immense lore can actually shine, and they got it. The success of this title is therefore a cultivated outcome, and the result of the insanely good marketing strategy that Larian employed. The game has been 7 years in the making, which isn't uncommon for a AAA game out there. So when embarking upon the journey of creating a game, a studio takes into account how long they expect the development cycle to take, obviously. Which leads us on the comment regarding the 3-year early access period. Now, I must admit that early access purchases make me a bit nervous, right? I think everyone's a bit nervous about early access purchases, because they can and have been used as a money-grabbing tool. Now, in the case of Larian, I didn't even blink. As soon as early access was available, my credit card was billed for the full amount of the game, and I was happy, right? I was over the moon. I was getting Baldur's Gate 3, even in an early access state. That's because Larian has a previous track record of delivering S-grade content, in my opinion, right? Not even AAA, S-grade content. Their games are insane. So, let's take into account Divinity Original Sin 2, for instance. That game also had an early access. I think it lasted roughly a year. And they received masses and masses of feedback from the player base. They made the necessary changes, and Divinity Original Sin 2 is an insanely good game as a result of that. So that's just one example of how a studio can use early access to their benefit, because the player base gets to play the game and they get to receive feedback and they get to implement things and change things in accordance with the customer and or the end user and their wishes. But more importantly, Larian knew they were in for a long run of early access, right? They knew it. This is exactly why we got the panels from hell. Each time they released a major content update, they gave us a panel from hell. And that is the actual next level and mind-blowing marketing strategy that Larian actually employed here, right? I think each and every one of the studios out there should take a leaf out of the Larian's book. They went out of their way completely to rent out entire castles. And I say that again, they rented out entire castles. They clad themselves in armor and other costumes and presented a whole theatrical-like performance to all of us. This was done live. It was a live stream event. It wasn't even pre-recorded. Everything was done live. And they did this for like 7 or 8 times. I've lost count now, right? It might actually be more. I think it's roughly 7 or 8 times throughout the 3-year early access cycle. And I ask you this, which other studio has ever done this? I can't think of any studio that's actually done this. From start to finish, Larian's marketing strategy has been on point and focused on the customer's needs. As a gamer, I want to know what my money is going into, and therefore during early access I want frequent updates, and what I got was frequent updates. And also a series of live-streamed theatrical presentations, and during which they gave me all the teasers and information that I wanted and more. That's crazy, right? So here They not only meet my expectations with respect to frequent updates and posts and newsletters and blah blah blah, they even created the Larian Gazette for it. They also gave us the panels from hell. Moving on, we know that the game as a whole was potentially a bit more limiting during its initial development phases. We know for a fact that the city of Baldur's Gate, for instance, was a bit more limiting, was smaller potentially, was fractioned into bits. We had loading screens. That's no longer the case. Obviously, we know that because Sven and other Larian members of staff have told us so on numerous occasions. So it was clear that during development, they were faced with a dilemma. Either grow your studio, which they apparently grew tenfold, or limit the game. They actually chose to grow. So they kept the customer in mind once again and decided to grow and expand and recruit talent and push borders and push their limits and push everything to keep us, the customer, the gamer, the player, at the forefront. That's how a studio should work. Was expanding so much a risk? Yeah, for sure. It's definitely a risk. Was it as big of a risk that Mr. Zalavier and all these other developments that have gone to back him think it was? I don't think so. It was a calculated risk. The series of Twitter posts closes out saying that if the gaming community as a whole backlashes and expects a new standard of games, having seen the scope of Baldur's Gate 3, then the remaining developers may never be able to give us what we love the most. Sorry, but that's bullshit. I think the whole epilogue of his series of posts is deliberately missing the entire point. I must admit, it's an extremely effective way of actually gaslighting us, the members of the public, and getting into our subconscious and affecting it to skew our notion of what is kind of allowable to expect and what isn't. It is absolutely okay to expect developers to strive for the best and provide us with groundbreaking, innovative games that also ultimately provide good value for money, right? At the end of the day, a customer has $50, €50, whatever your currency is, to spend on a product. Why on earth would they choose a product that offers less for their money? Why? So the first rule of business, right? The customer is always right. I've said it before, I will say it again if I have to. The customer is always right. Respect the customer, and they in turn will respect you and will push you and will buy your product. What I'm trying to say with this statement is that expectations are like a living organism, right? The more people get, the more people will want. And for the gaming industry specifically, let's not take this out of context, this is perfectly fine and healthy in my opinion. It promotes growth, innovation, new fresh ideas to the forefront. It's good however you look at it. This isn't to say that we as customers or consumers or whatever you want to call us will want each and every RPG from now on to be exactly like Baldur's Gate 3 in depth. What we are asking for is for small indie studios to strive to get better and aspire to be in many ways like Larian. Aspire to care for the customers, and then the rest will naturally fall in its place. Obviously, the small indie games are priced accordingly, right? They wouldn't be sold at the same price as a mega game. And again, for a mega game, I think Baldur's Gate 3 as a whole is priced extremely low. And I say that whilst keeping in mind Diablo 4 with its box price and its battle passes and everything else. Large AAA studios, yeah, I want Baldur's Gate 3 to rattle your cages. I want it to startle you. You're far too comfortable in my opinion. The finance teams in large AAA studios need to start giving the dev teams more breathing space. That's the reality, right? I don't blame the development teams, it's the finance, in my opinion, that's causing the issues. Everyone needs to think more about the customer, about you, and be less focused about the immediate profits. The AAA studios need to start giving us more for our money and not try to milk us out of more, arguing that ongoing development of a game is a live service and therefore adding layers upon layers of monetization. So to sum up, almost every studio has its niche genre, right? Games that they are better at making than other games. Larian are extremely good, possibly even the best, at making RPG games. That's what makes them stand out. That's a fact. They are breaking ground in their niche. That is healthy, that's progress. That's what we want. Similarly, back when World of Warcraft was first launched, Blizzard was breaking ground in the field with their product. This is evolution in the gaming industry, right? It's evolution. And it's what every studio, in my opinion, should ultimately strive for. Now, if you're a small studio, for instance, and don't have the necessary funding to begin thinking about making a larger game, I'm not asking for a mega game here, I'm asking for just a larger game that thinks about the customer. Whereas on the other hand, if you are a AAA studio, there is no excuse in my view. Yes, you would need to produce these mega games and you would definitely need to take into account exactly what Larian with Baldur's Gate 3 have done. As you can probably tell, I can probably go on for a few more minutes talking about this subject. I admittedly got quite passionate when I was thinking about what to say in this video, which is why it's turned out a bit of a long one, and thank you for everyone that's actually stuck to this part of the video. Anyway, on to something far more cheerful, the giveaway. Guys, we're giving out a Baldur's Gate 3 copy. So, my motto in life is start as you mean to continue. And giving out free goodies to my community whenever I can is definitely something I want to start now and continue throughout the life cycle of this channel. All you need to do is make sure you're subscribed to the channel and leave a comment below telling me why you would like to get this free copy of the game. We will then choose the winner and announce them on August 1st. This is IceGod, and I hope you all take care, and I'll see you on the next one.